So we're going to go through all the myths, the classical myth that we hear all the time. The first one is the structural short. I used to work for a fund manager who said, oh, I want to find structural short. Now, every professional investors who publicly claims this looking for structural short is an imposter. Redeem, run, they're walking blow up. They're blow up walking. And let me explain you why. The idea behind this is people running around buying stuff long. They're very busy with their long portfolio. Then they dabble into short selling, fails, they get frustrated. Then they go and do it they tick all the boxes. I want something that has bad rating, a bad analyst rating, bad valuations, bad story, bad fundamentals, bad earning momentum, yada, yada. Basically, I want to find something that I can short and throw away the key. Now, if you think about it, we all know that short selling, we can all agree that short selling is difficult, more difficult than the long side. So if they're busy all day long doing what they love to do on the long side, because apparently it takes a lot of work, how is it logically possible that the short side, which is considerably harder, can be left unattended and unchecked? People who look for structural shorts are imposters who have absolutely no idea what short selling looks like. So Ron, if ever you find anybody talking about that. The second thing is short selling is the reverse of long. Well, the short world obeys its own laws. It abides by its own rules. And my favorite retort to people, oh, yeah. Just going short is just the inverse of going long. I'm like, okay, all right, no problem. Try it. Put your money where your mouth flap. Are you ready to put your money where your mouth is flapping? Go ahead. I'm watching. Go ahead. To this day, zero comeback. Short selling is a different skill set. It requires different rules that we're going to see. The third thing is there's infinite risk on the short side. Wrong, wrong, and wrong. Actually, people who believe that if people entrust you with their hard-earned savings, if they trust you with their money, for the people in an asset management business, if you watch the money of your clients evaporate and do nothing, just because the need to be right supersedes the obligation, the fiduciary duty that you have to your client, then you deserve to have your name passed down to posterity. You deserve to have your name sealed on a plaque at the bottom of a public urinal for the future generations to piss on it. Let that sink for a second. So there's actually, you need to learn stop loss. The point is, if you're on the short side, you need to learn stop loss. You need to learn to manage risk, and we'll come to that. The third thing is filters. Now, this is an interesting one. A lot of people come with preconceived ideas about short selling. All right, I'm going to short something that is expensive and I'm going to buy something that is cheap. It comes from the GARP, a growth at reasonable price method, where people want to buy something that is at a discount. It's the famous margin of safety. So they believe that the reverse of that is actually shorting at very expensive price. All right, let's see that for a second. So basically you would be shorting Netflix and you would be buying GE. Probably not a good idea. Or for instance, if you're doing cyclical stocks are machinery, chemicals, semiconductors, all these. Usually those stocks are very expensive at the bottom of the cycle because the price to earnings, because they don't have much earnings, and they're very expensive at the top of this. They're very cheap at the top of the cycle. So it's actually counter-cyclical. You would buy expensive valuation, you would sell into cheap valuation. So valuation doesn't really work. It introduces a filtering. Another thing that I've seen quite a lot is factor short selling. Now, factor short selling doesn't really work. It doesn't lend itself to short selling. So there's what I've seen quite often is like hybrid with what is that? Pairs trading. Unfortunately, factors is interesting, but Apple is not like a bit of growth. a bit of what is that, cash and so on and so forth. It's not a molecular cuisine. Apple is a story. Apple is a stock, for instance. The fundamentals. Now we're coming back to the fundamentals. Fundamentals. I used to compile financial statements. I used to be an accountant, so I have a fairly intimate view of that. And my first job in the financial services was around Enron time. So I actually uncovered frauds, quite a few. Being able to write financial statements and compile them, I was able to find them. I found 2 or 3. I found one which was NEC. NEC was a revenue recognition in the lease. It was well, basically they inflated their revenue in the US through leases, recognized revenues. So that was an outright fraud, and I found it in the notes to the financial statements, but it was only uncovered 3 years down the road. So going through this, it doesn't really work. Another good example of that is, for instance, Bill Ackman with the Herbalife. His need to be right was stronger than his obligation to make money. So he ran around, sent letters to the FTC to tell that Herbalife was a scam, Ponzi scheme, and so on and so forth. He lost $1 billion. Too bad. And one of the final myths is what I call the narwhal hunting. So narwhal hunting is people coming from the long side, usually hold the belief that good ideas, good stocks are few and far between. Like they want to have concentrated, good ideas that they can ride into the sunset. Now, if you transpose that to the short side, given the asymmetry of information, there's no shortage of news on the long side, but on the short side, it's very difficult to find information. Like companies are notoriously introvert with bad news. There's no budget freeze on a good PR, but there's always like omerta, silence on bad news. So with all this, if you think that on the long side ideas are few and far between and you're a whale hunter, if you transpose that to the short side, you'll have far fewer ideas. So basically you'll be hunting unicorn whales. You'll be running around the Arctic Circle hunting for those elusive whales called narwhals. The short side doesn't work like that. It cannot work like that.